morning. My name is Edward Herbert Green. To talk about Zora Neale Hurston's books, and Zora Neale Hurston and my family, because I am related to her. And I was introduced to her books in the year either 2000 or 2001 by Teresa Powell, who was an avid reader. And her and my wife Brenda in a book club together. And she loaned me a Zora Neale Hurston book. And when I started reading the book, I realized that I was a distant kin of hers. And I used to tell my mother, and she said, "I'm not kin to any famous person." I said, "Mama, one of these days we're gonna have proof." And so when I started reading her book, one of her books, I can't remember the name of it because I couldn't find it, but I started reading people's names in the books that I recognized. One of them was my grandmother, my father's mother. One of them was my grandfather, and my grandmother's Catherine Willa Clark Alexander, and Clark is her maiden name. And one of the people in there was George Brown from Gretna, Florida, the panhandle of Florida, who grew up on a farm there, and that was my grandfather, my father's father. Then I saw a little boy's name in there, Hubert Alexander, who is my grandmother's oldest child, my father's oldest brother. And years later, I think now 1 year later, in 2001, I got a copy of a magazine, and they did a story on Edenville, Florida. And there was a photograph in there that related to one of the stories I read in Zora Neale Hurston's book. And the photograph was a 12-year-old boy peering into the camera, and my uncle Hubert Alexander, who was in the story in Zora Neale's book. And I contacted my uncle, and I asked him if the Smithsonian magazine, I asked him if he subscribed to that, and he said no. I said, "You need to go and get some, because your picture's in there as a little boy." But I began to read a lot of Zora Neale's stories and stuff. And the story Their Eyes Were Watching God was turned into a movie by Oprah Winfrey, with Halle Berry starring my great-great-aunt, who was the co-founder of Edenville's wife, and the co-founder was Joe Clark, which is my great-great-uncle on my father's side of the family. But now I'm some kin to Zora on my mother's side of the family. My mother's grandmother and Zora Neale Hurston were cousins. So these stories really are about my past as far as my ancestors, and a part of my history. So that's what drew me to the stories. And I started writing a book on Zora myself that I never finished, and I probably need to, because there was some controversies on some of the things about her, as far as where she was born and how old she was. Anyway, if you have a chance, pick up some of these books and start reading them, because they're very interesting. Thank you.